Well, I hope you're all doing well. And I was told by someone today, actually, that in the Tibetan calendar, today is actually a very dark day. Um, it's seen to be Today is seen to be a day uh, in the year where supposedly nothing will go right. And because we're at 7 p.m., we don't have much longer to go. I'm hoping that your day has been a good one. Um, but in the astrology of the Tibetan calendar, it's a day where things happen to people who are starting things or trying to accomplish something, and they don't work out, or injury happens. But it's a very inauspicious, unfortunate day today. That has not been my experience, I have to say, but I have purposely not done very much. So, except look at papers. A couple of you have papers that I've been reading, so I am doing that. So anyway, what that actually prompted me to think about, whether we actually have experienced that or believe it or not, whatever, wherever we are with that little piece of information, um, reminded me of a really lovely practice called strong back, soft front. I think a couple of you have heard this before. It's by the great Roshi Joan Halifax, who is a Zen Buddhist teacher in Santa Fe. I've had the privilege of leading some things at Upaya in Santa Fe, and I've gotten to know her a little bit there. She's quite brilliant, and one of the practices that she has sort of generated is called strong back, soft front. And what this is a way for us to balance two qualities, two of the immeasurable qualities that in Buddhism are called the Brahma Viharas. The Brahma Viharas. Brahma Vihara means sort of divine abode, or it's often translated as the immeasurables. And there are four qualities that are seen to be utterly boundless, that when we cultivate them and practice them, we find that sort of the circle of our caring and the circle of our experience just can widen indefinitely to include all beings. And those four qualities are, the first one is loving kindness, metta. And that's a practice we've done. I don't remember the last time we've done it, but it has an entire kind of meditation practice in various stages of cultivating the wish for happiness and well-being for ourselves and for others. And the second one of these Brahma Viharas then is compassion. And compassion seeming to be a boundless quality, the aspiration not so much for happiness or for wishing well-being and happiness for all beings, but rather the alleviation of suffering. And that's really what defines compassion here, is a heart that is unconditionally loving and moved to alleviate suffering in any way that it can. So um, then the third is empathetic joy, which is mudita, is the Pali term for it. Empathetic joy is all about cultivating a sense of gladness and joy in other people's well-being and fortune. No, I was almost said misfortune. No, it's not that. But cultivating a sense of real deep appreciation for the good things that happen to others without ourselves being part of it. Without ourselves being kind of like uh, involved in this narrative of, oh, this person had, won the lottery. Why can't I do that, right? But rather, really being deeply appreciative and glad and joyful in the good things that happen to others. And then the last one is equanimity, something we've talked about here pretty regularly. This quality, well, it's called upeka, is the Pali word for it, upeka. And it's this quality of neutrality, of sort of abiding in a state where we are not moved by stimulus, by things that enter into our space, by being triggered or judgments or reactions, but rather equanimity is the state of even, meeting all things with an even mind, whether it's other people or things that happen in the world, or our own thoughts, our own experiences of aversion and reactivity. And so, this capacity simply to abide in a neutral way, bearing witness in a way that is open and spacious and non reactive and non judgmental. That is, when a thought comes, whether it's a good thought or a bad thought, it's just a thought, right? It's not, oh, I like this thought, I hate that thought, I want more of these thoughts, and I don't want these thoughts. And, that kind of preferencing. So it's really a lack of preference, but it's not a lack of engagement. And this is the key to equanimity. Sort of my soapbox, my bullhorn around equanimity is that it is a sense of not being moved, not being jostled about by things, but we are still very deeply engaged with what is going on. So compassion and equanimity are these two boundless qualities that depend on each other. They are very mutually reliant. So compassion as a heart that is truly and deeply loving and really acknowledging suffering and moved to alleviate it, is capable of being with suffering. It can be overwhelming without equanimity. We need equanimity to be kind of the stability and the rootedness within compassion. At the same time, without compassion, equanimity can easily fall into indifference or apathy because of that sort of unmovability. So these two qualities really being very important kind of attendants to balance the two is an ongoing practice for us, and not sort of give in to a heart that is shutting down or closing down based on things we don't like, but rather relying on equanimity in those moments and to stay engaged and connected. And what we find is it's okay to keep the heart open if we get angry, if we get frustrated, if we get fearful, and instead cultivate an openness of heart with the root of equanimity. So these two qualities very mutually very important here. Um, so what is strong back, soft front? Well, think about how often we go through life with a soft front, or rather a strong front and a soft back. This shield, this forward facing shield, right, of protection that many of us live our lives just kind of very distant, separate, like, whoop, don't get too close till I get to know you better. And yet the spine is a little bit like a jellyfish. It's a lot of us feel that way in our lives. And so this practice, what I appreciate about Joan Halifax's approach to this practice is flipping that narrative back into the correct kind of, or the more wholesome way of experiencing life, which is with a soft front, with the belly, the soft breathing of compassion, and the stability and equanimity of the spine. And we can do it right in the physical body. Because so these concepts may feel like oh my gosh, they're out of reach. But we can do it right with our senses, right as we sit to meditate, cultivate a sense of the spine, of the rootedness, and yet also the flexibility and the openness and fluidity of a loving front. Um, anyway, so I thought that might be a nice kind of way to uh, practice together what is happening in the world or what is happening in our lives. Many of us are feeling the pressure of having to stay isolated longer, and with the surge in the pandemic and such. So this is a really good, a gentle practice that can remind us just to stay sort of rooted and to basically bow to the ground of this refuge where we are having to remain, and yet also staying open and compassionate and loving at the same time. There's very much a quality of resilience to this as well that's possible.